All right, welcome back. We are gonna get started with the Celeste build. I'm gonna be going to the workshop tomorrow to process down the ash, get that jointed up, probably do some routing for the truss rod channel on this, get the truss rod in place. I could already glue in the fretboard. We'll see how far I get. Generally just do some rough shaping on the neck to maybe, we'll see how much I get done tomorrow. But first things first, we need to do some prep work. So there's not too much that I can do with the ash, not too much I can do with the neck or the fretboard or the binding. Okay, so one real quick thing. Seeing as this is the sort of prep work video, I need to show you some footage of prep work on the top, which is, filmed in 2013. Back when I was in school for carpentry. So let's have a look at how I worked on the top, shall we? Here we go. So yeah, basically just on the bandsaw, I'm going for a book match. This is actually a piece of walnut that I salvaged. It was already marked to go into the trash bin because it had knots in it and it was going to be thrown away. I wasn't having that. It was just too nice of a piece and I had to save it and use it for something. And now 7 years later, I actually have use for it for a project that I've had planned for about 5 years, 6 years, 5 years. I'll say 5 years. So yeah, camera angle is what it is, but basically just going very slowly on the bandsaw with a resaw blade, so it's actually going pretty quick. It's hogging up a lot of material. Just carefully going at it. I wish you could see a bit more, but yeah, just slowly but surely. And I'm using a fence to actually make sure that I'm getting a straight cut and a nice book match. And what a book match is basically when you split a piece of wood and you open it like a book. So then it becomes a book match where both sides are the same grain pattern, if you didn't know already. But yeah, so that is getting pushed through like so. So at the very end, I slowed down quite a bit because I didn't want it to jump. So I just basically went very, very slowly and let it cut through the end. Then now I have two faces which are, full bandsaw marks. So I'm just gonna plane those smooth, and it looks like the wood is also a little bent. So I am gonna get that worked out as well. Okay, I don't know why I'm doing it this way. Usually, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to first flatten the face of your plank and then use that flat face up against the fence so you get the side of it. That way you have a square edge on your piece. I really don't know why I'm doing it this way. Oh, I realize what I'm doing. I'm getting a surface for, I believe, for me to glue. So I don't think I'm actually going to be planing this yet. I don't know why I'm doing it in this order. I'm only now cutting the edge of it to get a nice edge. So I'm doing this kind of backwards. I would recommend first cutting off excess if there's like bark or just getting a nice straight cut, then going onto the plane, planing the face, then planing the side, and then thicknessing, then jointing, then re-thicknessing or sanding to the correct thickness. But hey, I was still learning what the proper processes were. That's quite a lot of glue that I'm putting on there. That's a lot of glue. And of course, out of focus. Well, now we have a very nicely focused up glue bottle right there, but in the background I have A good lot of rail clamps. Would not need this many, but hey, gets the job done. Then I have 2 blocks of wood, so I'm not creating dents onto my work surface. But yeah, that's a lot of clamping pressure on there that I don't need. So after that's done, then it looks like I move on to, yep. So now I move on to the planer. And now basically what I was doing before, I was just getting a good joint for, oh, it makes sense. Let me pause this real quick. So what I was doing is first I planed the sides so that I had a gluing surface. And then I trimmed the edges of the sides that I wasn't gonna glue, so I had a straight line or a square edge up against which I could clamp everything together. Okay, well that makes sense. Still kind of weird how I did that, but yeah, it makes sense now. And then now I'm flattening one side and only one side of this entire top, because after this I'm gonna move on to the thicknesser, where I get it to approximately the right thickness that I want, and then finally I go on to the drum sander and I sand it to final thickness. Yeah. So, thicknesser, fairly straightforward. Put it through on one side and slowly but surely take off a little bit up until I get it to a nice smooth cut. Let's have a look at it coming through. Hopefully soon. Ah, there's that sound. There we go. Not really in the frame all that well, a lot of line. Yeah, as you can see, me filming things back in the day and framing things was somewhat of an issue. But let's have the final pass here. Yeah, there we go. So I got it to a rough thickness, and then I move on to the drum sander. So putting it through on one side. And then this is a big drum sander. I think I still could go and go to my school's workshop and actually use this if I asked them to. Not now because of COVID, but sometime later on. It basically has 3 different grits of paper, and it's enormous, but the sanding that it does is so nice. If there's one machine that I miss from that workshop in particular, it is this drum sander. This drum sander is amazing. But yeah, I could have taken it down way more, but I think what happened there was I was afraid to take off too much because I'd lose the book match. Funnily enough, I'm ending up using the side that you saw there that I was sanding down. I'm actually using the opposite side for the top. But yeah, hey, let's get back to the present. Actually, now it's 2021. Let's get back to last year, which was a few weeks back, a month back, a couple of months back. I can't remember when it was. Let's go back to last year. But this walnut has these 2 big knots in it, and in order to make it a bit more stable, I need to fill those up. Now I'm thinking I'm gonna use some resin because I have a lot of it left. So I'm gonna use some resin, probably pigment it black, and yeah, let's go for it. All right, so gotta fill these up, and I'm gonna be using some resin, epoxy resin, however you want to call it, to fill those up. I'm gonna be using some ebony dust as well in combination, so I can get it nice and black. Now this is gonna be the underside, so of course if I were just to pour straight on there, it would pour all the way through. So I'm gonna use some aluminum tape to seal up the voids from the underside. Really burnishing it down so I don't get any leaks. And yes, removing this tape will be a royal pain, but I can use a scraper to get it off fairly easy. There we go. Burnish that all down, all the way around the cavity. Hopefully it doesn't come through there. Might need to add a little bit there. All right, so that's all blocked up, clogged up. I have a tray so that if I do have any spillage through, it'll go onto the tray instead of all over my workbench. All right, so the mix ratio of this resin is 2 to 1. 2 parts resin, 1 part hardener. And I don't need much to actually get this done. So, I'm gonna mix it in here. And it's very important to make sure that you get all the drops out of there, like so. I'm gonna mix the hardener in the other one, or pour the hardener, I should say. There's the hardener. Close that up. Then mix. And you can see the viscosity of this stuff change as you're mixing it. Put in ebony dust. You could easily put in more. Now I'm gonna get a nice close-up of this. And here we go. Now I could just pour it in, but I don't want to miss and waste epoxy, so I'm just kind of dabbing in. Now just to make sure, don't see any leaks on the other side. That's always a positive thing. And the other one. Now seeing as this is like, this was already pretty dry, the piece of wood before I salvaged it, but it's been drying for 7 years, so it is bone dry, so it might even suck up some of this moisture from the epoxy here. Little taps. Just to make sure that if there's any air in there, I'm getting rid of that. Nothing's leaking through. It's always positive. Need a little bit more there. Important thing to note that epoxy does dry and then shrink as it does so. So while it looks like I have heaps of it, it still might be that I might need to add more. But as it currently stands, I think it's looking pretty good. Now, issue is I need to think of what to do with the excess epoxy that I've made.